Welcome to the Wang Hiro podcast, where we answer Malaysians' burning questions about personal finance with fact-based answers.
Imagine this. You've been working at a company for 20 years, and one morning you wake up to find an email that says you've been part of the recent company wide layoffs. Thanks for your service, it's no longer needed. And with that, you're out of a job and your main income source is gone. This isn't a make believe scenario, it's the exact thing that happened to thousands of people who got laid off in the recent tech industry layoffs from companies like Google, Twitter, which for many, many years, people thought of that as the golden rice bowl. And the harsh reality is that it could happen to any one of us. So, in today's episode, we talk about the risk of having a single income source, how you might want to hedge that risk by adding more income sources, and what are the options that you can do that. So, what do you think makes just having one income source so risky, John?
Think of building a very tall building, but you are relying on one single pile. So another simpler analogy is if you have a chair and you only have a single pillar to it. If that pillar fails, there's no backup. I think any person who wants to be financially independent or want to have some sort of financial freedom should actually not depend on a single source of income. And I think while most Malaysians lament that they don't have enough money, they don't spend enough time thinking about, they keep on thinking like entrepreneurship is risky or doing business is risky. But actually, for me, employment is even riskier because it's like, that's the single choke point, you know.
But what if, like, they're in this kind of job where they think, I'm going to be hired for a really long time. It's not something I need to think about yet.
Yeah, work for the government, for sure you'll be hired for a very, very long time.
Yeah, maybe some people are working for the government. They're like, okay, actually working for the government is fine with me, and I have a stable income.
Correct.
So what do you say?
So for those, don't cringe and lament when you don't have, you cannot enjoy life's luxury. So if you want that kind of stability, you want that kind of how would I say, you're foregoing potential income, then you live within your means. And by no means, I'm not saying it's wrong, but what I'm saying is that you cannot have the slice of cake and eat the cake too. That's what I'm trying to say. In a sense that you want to have a risk-free kind of cash flow, and yet you want to have the abundant lifestyle that you see other people have. So that's where that balancing game is, because I think most people, like it or not, they want it, but they suppress this belief of having abundant. But they suppress it because they don't think they have the potential, they're afraid of the unknown, they don't want to take risks and all that kind of thing. And I think in this particular episode, what I will try, with your help as well, to inculcate and to open people's mind is that if you're going to work for one single income and one single income alone, it's not just about hedging the risk. It's about, hey, are you actually pushing your own limitations or belief system to think bigger, to look at other opportunities? And I think that's, if I were to fail to do anything else, that's the single objective of this particular episode, Louis.
So what do you think, John, are the options that people have when it comes to hedging that risk or just exploring those options? I think a lot of people probably have thought about it, but it's kind of scary to think about, okay, here I am. Maybe for me, for example, I was trained as an engineer. So I graduated as an engineering graduate, like some 10 plus years ago. And I was doing some business on the side. And one very common comment that I used to get from my friends who were all engineers was like, oh, do we actually, you don't have to do that. You don't have to learn new things. We are in a very stable industry. We are engineers. So there are people like that who probably have been working in some sort of skilled environment for 10 years, 20 years, and that's all they know. And to even imagine of different paths may be difficult, or even different ways to make money can be difficult. If not completely absent from their minds. So what do you think are those options out there?
I love that question, and we both came from somewhat of a similar industry in oil and gas, and we were paid comfortably. To be honest, if you just continue along that path, it's comfortable. Here's my question: don't you want to one day? How you want to make more money is to climb that corporate ladder and probably be a general manager or vice president or whatever, right? For them to be where they are, a vice president role or GM role, what do they need to understand? They need to understand how the business actually works. Isn't that acquiring skills as well? And it was an elevation. Why do they get paid more than a technical person? Because for them, their decisions actually make or break the profitability of a company. And now, why is this related to your question about what are the options out there? Is that if you don't even understand what is the source of your income, how does the business generate profit to pay you salary, then how are you going to grow up in an organization? And by knowing that is a skill that you need to pick up even if you climb the corporate ladder, there's actually an option for a side hustle as well. Because if you learn how to understand businesses and how to take risks as a business, in a way, a leader of a business organization, why not use that skill set to look at investing? Because investing for me...
What if, John, if there's someone who's just like, I'm comfortable
in
just knowing some technical skills. I don't want to know business. It's actually not my interest. What do you say to that?
I know a lot of people who are like that. It's like, I just want to do my technical thing or whatever.
Let the bosses handle that.
Okay, here's the question. What if your technical skills was not valued anymore? You become obsolete. You become... Okay, it's so funny that you asked this question. I was cleaning up a lot of my junk from yesteryears, okay? And one of the things that I've cleaned up yesterday in my house was a DVD recorder. You know a DVD recorder? I don't even remember.
Like ages ago.
Correct. So I bought this probably like 20 years ago when I first started working, right? And I bought it because I wanted to record the Olympics. That time got Astro, but I cannot watch the Olympics because it's working time, So I love volleyball. I wanted to watch the recording and I set a timer and all that kind of thing. Okay. So what happened was I was throwing out all this junk and I realized that the irrelevance of technology, because the change is so rapid. I mean, today you don't see a DVD player or a VCD player or into your laptop anymore. Last time, I don't know if you remember laptops, if you buy 10, 15 years ago, there's always a CD player at the side, right?
Yes.
And then today it's a thumb drive or whatever. So to the person saying that, I'll remain relevant technically, but technical debt, right, sometimes makes you obsolete. And when you become obsolete, then what are options you have? Right? Again, it goes back to that willingness, ability to relearn, unlearn, relearn. And I think back to your original question about what are the options, actually, there's many options. It already depends on whether you want to have interest, spend time to do it. I feel one of the best way, I'm not saying it's completely riskless, but I'm saying that it is much riskless compared to starting your own business, is investing. Because you're taking amount of money that you can lose to bet on someone else's business, to bet on someone's ability to actually generate a profitable business and return some of that returns to you. So there's one option. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm an investor. But compared to you opening up, let's say, your coffee shop, minimum you have to put out 100K, right? And whether that coffee shop will survive or thrive or will it turn into a failure, it's so many other factors: operational risk, hiring people, whether you manage inventory well, whether you manage procurement well. But if you are like putting money in small chunks to other people, here's the beauty of it. If that investment is like doesn't do well, there's only money you can lose. But when you take a business loan or you come up with a big amount of money to start one single business, you're relying on that one single business, Whereas if you're buying like 10 companies with 100,000, 10,000 each, right? Don't tell me all 10 companies fail, then you must have been a very lousy investor. But
John, here I think we need to make a point here about investing versus trading or other more like speculative forms.
yes,
I think sometimes people when we talk about investing, because it's such a broad term, sometimes people think about in the very speculative form, like forex,
correct.
things like. So maybe
Correct.
John, you can clarify a bit on what you mean by that investing.
I love that that interjection and that clarity of question. When we say investing, a lot of people buy into the stock market is they look at the prices of a particular chart and they decide that's a good company to buy. For us, for how I see things as an investor, I buy into a good business. I don't care whether the price is up or down, but I understand the business, whether it's profitable or not. And in short, I would only buy businesses that can generate cash flow over the long run, rather than it being like hopeful that one day it can go up or one day it can go down based on hope. Whereas for speculators or traders, they don't care about the underlying business that they're buying. They just know that, okay, maybe based on a certain emotional behavior of the market, sentiment, that the prices will go up. But for me as an investor, I think the fundamentals is understand the business well, have some sort of sense whether this company can be profitable more than where it is today in 5 years, and buy and wait for that profitability to happen, because that's where the value of the business will go up and the share price will actually go up, and that's where you get rewarded. So yeah, for me, those are the two, in the most concise manner, differences of investing versus speculating. And I'm not saying speculating you can't make money. The problem is a lot of speculators, they only tell you they're successful trades rather than their unsuccessful trades. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, most of the people who are sharing about how successful they are with trading are probably out there to sell a course. I wouldn't be surprised about that.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, other than investing, so let's say I don't have the appetite to invest. What should I do? What should I do? Yeah.
Learn a skill that can make money that doesn't take up too much of your time. I nearly considered going into teaching tuition.
Oh.
Yeah. Because I thought that, hey, it's a skill that I was still, in uni when I was interning in KL, and I was trying to offset because I was on a scholarship. It wasn't much, okay, but it was enough to pay my rent, but not food and everything. So I'm thinking, can I do more when I come back from work, and then there's a certain hours of the day I can go and like earn an extra income. Then when I calculate, right, the man hours that they would be paying me, it was like 60 ringgit an hour or something like that, right? 1-to-1. Way back in, 1-to-1.
Okay, that was like ages ago.
Yeah, it's.
I can't find that kind of rate these days.
Yeah, no way. This is way back in 2001. 2001. Yeah, probably about 20 years ago, 22 years ago. So I looked at it and I said that I'll be teaching, but am I growing myself? So instead of me spending my time to actually teach tuition, I actually attended coding class. Because I knew coding class, if I could get gigs to code, it would pay better.
So like, what was the outcome of that like coding class? I don't see you coding these days. So.
Yeah, then I found out, right, coders, a lot of people don't know what they don't know. So when the clients come and see you, they said, code me this. But then midway through, they say, hey, I don't want this. And in a way, you waste a lot of man hours. I mean, this is the industry way back, 22 years ago, when there was not much
back then.
Correct. But I did make money from website development. Simple ones. Yeah,
HTML websites.
HTML, way before PHP and all that kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Amazing,
so
how
that
much
could
did
be an
you
option.
charge per website though?
Oh, very cheap. I think it was $200.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But we're talking about early 2000s.
Okay, yeah, it's probably like $500 today, maybe.
Yeah, probably about $500 today, lah. So it was a simple website, and yeah. So, great question. Is segue from investing. If you don't have the appetite, then you pick up a skill. So either teaching. I think teaching, training, it's still very relevant today. I still train. And if you are a trainer, I think you get quite a good income if you're good at what you do. So it has to be somewhat very niche, a specialized one, and it meets the demand of the market. I think it'll be great. What other things? I know people who do terrarium. Terrarium meaning you build plants inside a bottle. I think there was for me, one of my clients, my coaching clients did that. I was like, wow, I didn't even know it existed. Okay. Again, it's going to be very niche. Or something like what you did, Louis, copywriting. Maybe you can share your experience about, why you pick copywriting.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I was just about to ask you that as well. And I think when picking a side hustle, I think you have to start with what you like. Personally, I think that's how you should do it. And for me, I did a lot of different side hustles while I was still an engineer. So I started this project. I think I talked about it in other episodes as well, where I listed down everything I thought I liked and I thought would make money from, and I termed this project "Do It Until You Fail." Right, so this, yeah. So I like naming things back then because I took that from a book that said, if you want to do something, just give it a name. So okay, do it until you fail. And then what's fail? Fail doesn't mean it has to fail per se, but fail in terms of like, okay, maybe you found a reason why you didn't want it to do it, or maybe it doesn't actually make money. These kind of things. I don't remember everything on that list, but vividly, a few two projects I remember that I did was one was technical writing. So since I'm an engineering graduate, and we I think in most programs in Malaysia you have a final year project, right, John?
Yes, that's right.
You had one too in yours?
Yes,
okay,
definitely.
so we had a lot of research papers to write right at the end, the last year. So I thought, okay, actually I'm quite good at writing these papers, and I was just graduated, so I thought, okay. And I also want to do some freelance writing lah. At that time, I had not done any freelance gig in my life. I was 21 or 22. I thought, okay, it would be great, just to go through that process of writing is just one part of it, right? You have to have the client acquiring, billing, all of these things that I thought I just wanted to learn at that time. Just client management skills. So I did get the job. I applied through a website. I got the job, and it was like quite good money, 500 ringgit per article. Yeah. So it was like technical writing for palm oil project. So I did a few of that, and then I found that, okay, actually I don't like to do this. I don't want to do this. So I crossed that freelance writing out of my life. Yeah. So then next project I wanted to do was like, back then it was quite a hype. Actually, it's still a hype now. Custom T-shirts. Yeah, you design. Yeah, right. Then I realized that, okay, bottleneck is that you need a lot of capital for the machines, etc. Back then. Now you don't. Okay, so but that's a topic for a different episode. Okay, but back then that was like 2010. Okay, so we didn't have like websites like Fancy now, or like DIY printing websites all over the world, right? Printable. Back then you had to buy your own machines, print it yourself. That's probably right. Would cost like 20,000 ringgit. As a fresh graduate, I didn't have that kind of money lah, so that fell because I was too broke. so things like that, I just examine it one by one. So how did I land on copywriting was because I followed this personal finance guru, Ramit Sethi. I think he's still quite relevant today. Then he interviewed this one guy in a course that I subscribed to. I paid some money to join the course that he was selling, and this guy was like, copywriting could probably be one of the most profitable skills you could get. That was like in 2012. And this guy was like making, I think, 10,000-20,000 per page.
Wow.
Yeah. US dollars. So I was like, wow. What it made me think, like what made this person earn so much from just words? Then over some time, I studied and realized, actually, the reason why you could make that kind of money is because you are helping the client earn even more. So then in my mind, I was like, okay, as long as I can keep doing that, I can keep making money. yeah, so that was how I decided on that skill myself, and then the other things as well, just copywriting being one of them. Yeah.
What was the biggest surprise that you had copyright? Because to be honest, prior to me starting in the social media space, I mean, from my previous life, I've always heard this term copywriting, but I never really understood copywriting until someone actually debunked the science to me. You know, it's like, what's a hook, whatsoever, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually a skill that really makes money. So that was my surprise. For you, what was the surprise that you get when you onboarded yourself into this copywriting world? Actually,
How much misunderstanding there was around it, I think.
Explain.
Yeah, yeah. So even like even people who say, hey, I'm a digital marketing agency, or I'm hiring a copywriter.
Mm.
And then what they expect you to do at that moment is to write product descriptions. Okay, so in a sense that is copywriting, but not in the most traditional sense, because the product description is just a description. It's not the only thing that's selling the product, right? But in copywriting, you have to think about the whole page. Okay, you have to think about what the title, the heading, the subheading, the first paragraph, all those little things, and then so copywriting is an ancient art, right? You have it in like a print, you also have it in direct marketing, mailers, right? But now in the digital world, you can also do A/B testing, which some copywriters or some marketers, they don't actually do that. They just, okay, this version, I'm done with it. In fact, there's a lot more testing that has to be done even with copyright. So what surprised me is that in the industry that we are in our country, we don't really always do that. Yeah. So that's surprising for me.
Yeah. I know in Western countries, I mean, if you look at some of the masters of selling, people like Dan Lok, people like Grant Cardone, and I've seen some of their behind the scenes video, and they do A/B testing. It's quite insane. I mean, like, and yet when we see it here, like what you said in the Malaysian market, actually that's not really well. But again, we're not gonna start going down the rabbit hole of copywriting. It's just wanted to anchor around the question of what are the other potential side income, side hustle gigs. And I thought copywriting was a pretty interesting one because I was surprised. I mean, when I was open these eyes to me probably about 5 years ago, it was like quite opening. Okay. So these are some of the options. And I think you pointed out some good ones, which is something that must interest you. Give it a try if you don't know, because sometimes you wouldn't know until you give it a try. And I think you gave very good examples of that. Here's my thought process again, why you should. Let's say you don't want investing, but you want to do a side hustle, or for those who die there, just think that, I just climbed my corporate career path and that's it, right? Here's what I think a statistics that you should wake you up lah. And I think if you look at a median salary in Malaysia in 2021, you're talking about anywhere between 3,000 to 4,000 ringgit, and that's being generous, right? I know some people, because of certain industries, as I was sharing to you, Louis, before the show, 38, 39-year-old, probably getting paid 12K, and then net probably about 10K, and I think that's already being generous. But if you're staying in the Klang Valley with family, I don't think that's enough. No. I don't think that's enough, right? And
you'll survive, but do you have money for other things like emergency savings, retirement? That's a question. Yeah.
Precisely. And I think that's where starting either a side hustle or you finding a job that pays you much better. So for me, that in itself is a side hustle. Because if you're in an industry and you know that it's a very linear path, let's say you stay in a particular industry that, let's say banking. I know some Grab car drivers who were like former bank branch managers. And the reasoning was actually very simple. I work 15 years, I become a bank branch manager, I probably get 7 to 10K. And I work long hours, Saturdays included. Okay, there's no time left for anything else, right? I'm a very good well-oiled machine in a well-oiled bank. That's it, right? most of them will either leave to either sell a product from the bank, or they choose, like the friend that I met, he turned a Grab car driver. This is way back in 2012, 2013, right? Too bad I lost touch with this guy. He used to be my regular driver going to the airport. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you sit back and study the median salary and the increment for your industry, and you just plot it out, let's say 6% a year, which I think 6% is already very generous. 6% increment growth every year until you retire, right? How far can you go? There's compounding every year. I doubt people would have that, because the higher you go, your salary increment, the percentage gets lower and lower, and there's a certain cap. Because you're not doing anything else, there's already a ceiling, like you're a GM for a certain branch. Unless you acquire new skills, climb higher, right? And I think this, for me, served as my personal wake-up call, because I knew that, okay, I looked at my boss, and when I was still working for Royal Dutch Shell, he was probably paid 70, 80,000 a month, and then plus some shares and everything. But tax was like 30%. So let's just say you take home pay 50, right? I'm like thinking the amount of stress, the amount of time, and I'm like, hey, is that really what I want? And it's linear, and no, sorry, I wouldn't even use the word linear. Linear means you are guaranteed of a progression every year. But in a corporate career, sometimes you have a falling out with your boss, or it just didn't work chemistry and you have to move, right? I feel that what's your backup plan? Which leads to back to my point. You already know, you think, let's say you employ it as linear, but you know it's not linear. And yet you still don't want to open yourself to think about other optionalities of a side hustle or even investing. I think you are pushing yourself into a corner. I don't know whether I'm making sense to you.
I think rather than linear, in a lot of big companies or MNCs actually have like a grade, right? Pay grade.
Correct.
You mean that, right? So I think yes, you can't really shoot above that, especially when everything is structured in that way already. I think this level. I know a lot of my friends work in firms where you need to get like a diploma for this pay grade, a degree for this pay grade. Or your managers all get this pay grade. Everyone knows like roughly how much their seatmate earns because of that pay grade system, right? So, and every year you get this, okay, if you have this number of marks, you get this pay grade. We're living in a box somewhat, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, I think yes, it's true. So either you have side hustles like or investing to get some income, extra income, side hustle, or even just upgrading yourself in the same company, or like actually looking for other opportunities elsewhere.
Yeah, that's right.
So that at least will give you that hedging against, in case if I suddenly lose my job, hey, I actually do have like this second or third income, or if I can even like add income to your already existing income for other things, right? So everything will compound. Right?
Correct. I share one story. Too bad I can't remember exactly the name of the restaurant, but what happened was these guys were actually contractors to build KLIA, the first KLIA, right?
Okay.
And the moment they finish, they couldn't find a project of that size to give them that kind of income. And I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was during the 97 crisis or something, and jobs just dried up, okay? So there was no more government grants, no infrastructure projects to be dished out. So what they did was, because they had some savings, they started actually a curry fish head a restaurant. The recipe was borrowed from one of the friend's mother or something like that. And they started because it was a plot adjacent to KLIA. They opened it up somewhere in Nilai or Sepang, I can't remember. And the business just blossomed.
Wow.
So you see, right, in times like this, I mean, during COVID, you see airline pilots doing the same. They couldn't fly, they couldn't get allowance, some were even retrenched from their airlines. And they started food businesses because they probably had a recipe passed down from their mother 2 or 3 generations. Never really took a shot at it, but desperate times call for desperate measures. What we are trying to do in this episode is like, you don't wait for the desperate times, then you start scrambling.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
There's always a saying like make money when you don't need it.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
that, right?
Yes.
In
Yes.
Malay, it's sediakan payung sebelum hujan.
Hujan. Correct. Correct. And then you want the payong also, if you can, right? Make the
Okay.
payong like iron proof, you try plastic one or doesn't really work well, and then you try like reinforce. That's where you remember earlier to the earlier part of the conversation you alluded to. You were even thinking like, if we do this kind of copyright, this kind of heading, whatever, that only comes to experience after trying 1-2 rounds. You do this, it works this way. Same for investing. Same for any business. You think tomorrow you open coffee shop, tomorrow you know everything. I mean, even a simple business like coffee shop, ordering system,
Yeah.
procurement of supply, how you
Keeping
handle
the
stuff.
supply fresh, like all supply chain, man, so much stuff. So it depends how big your restaurant grows.
Correct.
Okay. So John, I was thinking, so maybe if someone was really interested to, maybe start with the investing, what would you recommend them to start with? Let's say, maybe some questions they might have would be how much do they need to start with? I mean, what's the minimum?
Okay.
How much time they need for it? I think a lot of people who have a job, maybe a very demanding job, they don't have enough time. So how much time realistically can they devote to this to actually see some returns, and how long before they can see the returns? Some basic stuff like that.
Great question. And I think this question alone warrants a separate episode altogether. But I'm just going to like give a concise one
High
based on
levels.
my own learning journey. Yeah. I think first and foremost, even investing, you can divide into investing in different asset classes. So, right, you're talking about property, unit trust, stocks. I feel property and stocks, unit trust and stocks are in a way same but not similar. Sorry, similar but not the same. Because unit trust, you're handing over the control and the management of the portfolio to someone else, and whereas stocks, you're taking control of it yourself. So different asset classes warrant different times, different amount of dedication of work, different observation, different oversight. Okay. I think how I would start is actually myself, in a sense that yourself, the listeners out there, go pick up books. I think that's the best way. And if they said, John, Louis, I don't have time to, then might as well don't start anything. Because it requires time. It requires like understanding at least the gist.
What's the minimum you think they need to like spend time reading, let's say? It's just a starting beginner person.
For me, when I caught the bug, I didn't even realize how much time I spent. But I spent hours and hours. And mind you, when I started investing, YouTube only existed in 2007. I started I started speculating 2007, 2008, lost a lot of money. 2009 was when I really took investing seriously. I would spend hours and hours of reading blogs. Some of these blogs don't even exist anymore, right? I think one of them that still survive until today is Casey Lau. So I consider him the OG of financial blogging. Yeah.
But what if like they just haven't caught the bug yet,
haven't caught the bug? Okay, I would say at least 1 to 2 hours a week. At least. I don't think 1 to 2 hours a week is too much to ask, to be honest.
No, I think it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
But how long before they like all these revision studying before they can actually put money?
Okay, great question. I would say obviously we take into account that they already have the basic stuff, 6 months of emergency savings, whatever. Only when you reach that point where you have money that you can burn, that you lose in investing, then only you go in. And the reason why I want to put this as a caveat is because a lot of people go into investing thinking they can outgrow or out-invest the problems they have now, which is not having enough savings, not having enough cash flow, spending more than their means, right? A lot of people think they go into investing, they can out-invest the problem. Right?
So John, the preliminary prerequisites for investing, is to make sure that you have 6 months of emergency, your finances in order. But let's say they haven't had that yet. So what would you recommend them to do first? Like maybe get
Read, just
raise.
read and watch YouTube. I mean, like, that's how I started, because I didn't have money. I started reading about investing way back, but unless you have that 6 months, you know what you will do or not, Louis, most of the time. You will buy things based on hope to try to recoup your money,
Right.
to try
Yeah.
to like make money as fast as possible. And that's where you are the most vulnerable and you're very likely to lose money. Because you are, yeah.
The financial cushioning definitely gives you a different mindset when it comes to buying.
Correct. And I think about the amount of money you should invest, if you think that you can save, let's say you already have your 6 months of emergency savings or whatever, and you can only set aside like 100 ringgit a month, by all means, 100 ringgit a month is a lot of money, because the earlier you start, the better, right? The earlier you start,
it's just to learn, right?
Yes, it's just to learn. And trust me, a lot of people hesitate to start is because they're scared they lose money. Losing money is part of the game. I repeat myself. Whether it be property, I've not seen a successful investor not lose money before. Never.
So that's why, again, listeners, we have to be aware of the caveat earlier. You need to have that financial stability first. So coming back to this 100 ringgit a month, for example, would you say, like, okay, let's look at it as a part of a percentage of their income. How much of, like, income should they put into investing as a beginner? Would it be safe, do you think?
Okay. I would say it should not be okay. Again, I understand the nuance of working in Malaysia. We don't actually pay very well, to be honest, unless you work for an MNC. But anywhere between 5 to 10% of your take home into investment, I think kudos to you. It's not easy. I know it wasn't easy for me, even though I earned quite a decent salary. 5 to 10% of your income into investments. Obviously, different gurus, different online opinions will tell you otherwise. But for me, 5 to 10% into investing. The other 5% is self-development. Because for me, you can be investing, but if you're investing, you need trust. But where's your own growth? You are actually giving other people money to grow the money, but you are not growing. You are not growing in terms of your mindset. And that's why I'm a bit of a fanatic when it comes to investing, because it's not just the money that I'm making. It's actually the mindset, the broadening of my thinking that I'm actually looking for. The same goes for entrepreneurship. I mean, when you started your business, yes, probably one of the main objectives is to make money, right? But you realize that for you to make money, you have to grow your capacity to make money. And I think a lot of people forget about when you do side hustles, and the earlier question you said, I would just want to stay technical or whatever. What you are trying to say is that I'm not looking for growth. I just want to stay where I am. I'm in my comfort zone. For you to make more money and to grow into a bigger person, you have to stretch yourself. And when you stretch yourself, these are the kind of things that explore. Explore 1 doesn't work. Explore 2 don't really like. Explore 3 you realize too much time. Then only through that journey, right? Then you say, this is something for me. Because what works for me may not work for you, Louis. What works for you, Louis, may not work for the other person. Yeah. Everyone has the christening journey, for the lack of a better word.
So basically, you're saying 5 to 10% invest in companies, 5% invest in yourself. Right?
Yes. Let me ask you this question, Louis. If you don't sharpen your knife, right, after you chop a few times, you want to chop a tree, right? Okay. There's this phrase, you want to chop a tree, there's two wood cutters, okay? You're given 4 hours to chop the tree. Both of you have the same axe. It's a very big tree. One woodcutter just hack until the tool is blunt. He'll still continue hacking because he's scared of the 4 hours. The other guy, before he even start hacking, sharpen the saw first. Then he hack. So I will use the analogy. If you want to make money, but you're not growing yourself and you're not investing in yourself, because you are the greatest asset, be it a side hustle, whether you want to do business, you want to do copywriting, you got to do training first, It's like you want to go into a ring with a black belt taekwondo guy, and you're like you never even train, then you're looking for disaster, lah, right?
Absolutely. And I think also like when people invest, right, sometimes they also consider a portion, or not everyone would want to be like you, John, you're like full-time investor. Is it possible to do that actually? Like if let's say I only start spending like 2 hours reading per week, that's all I can afford, 100 ringgit a month. I mean, what's the journey like, do you think? Maybe based on your experience.
It's a fantastic question. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I share this enthusiasm, so much enthusiasm about investing, but I also share a lot of enthusiasm about side hustles because I've started 3, right? As businesses, right? But for those who may not have found their cup of tea yet, I think if you want to take investing or any side hustle seriously, I would say anyway between 5 to 10 hours a week if you want to manage your own money. But if you don't want to manage your own money, and I don't think it's wrong to outsource your money to someone else, I think 2 hours to 5 hours a week of at least reading some basic stuff about what is investment. Because why is it important? Even though you're paying someone fees to manage your money, is your understanding to help your emotional well-being when the markets are up or down. That's why I think it's important. I think 2 hours a week, 100 ringgit a month, 100 ringgit a month, I think will be a very, very good start for those listening out there who like probably a fresh graduate or 2 years into your working career and you don't seem to have an interest, but you have to start. I think that's pretty good.
So very good point about like even when you are delegating your funds to someone else, let's say you bought some unit trust, you still have to study on your own, you think?
Yeah, just a little bit, and the reason why the unit trust agents or planners are being paid a commission is not just to sell you the product, but to educate you. So demand that education from your unit trust or whoever fund manager that you're gonna appoint, because you see, the fiduciary duty of that intermediary is to educate you. It's not just to sell you. And I think this is where I feel Malaysians have not demanded their right.
That's correct.
And yeah, because even an insurance planner, his or her first job is to educate you to show what you need, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And
I think a lot of Malaysians, they take a very passive approach to
correct.
this.
Hands off. It's like I give it to you already. I pay you commission. You settle everything for me. Okay. And no report, never read. How much position also don't know.
Yes, and then that's all.
Yeah. They don't even know their login. I know some people, they don't even know their login and the password for to check their account. And it's like, okay, maybe I know you're just totally not interested, but at least like the basic stuff, like is my portfolio growing like 5% a year, 8% a year? What they focus on? They're buying more China stocks or they're buying more Malaysian equities. Have that discussion with your planner. You'll be surprised that if you ask the right questions, I mean, you read, you may not understand, you ask the right questions. If your planner is competent enough, they will give you good answers, and that's where you grow with them, rather than just like throwing you solve my problem. It's like yeah.
I think also like maybe that's also a great way for like those people who just want to get started, right? Just like work with your
correct. Nothing wrong outsourcing, because I know the fear is like here's the problem, Louis, and
that people earn commission, right? It's being scammed.
Yes, they have this pet peeve of people earning commission. Hello, they also need to eat,
earn commission.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, I think that's a very good discussion around like how beginners can get started with investing. You just have to start small. That's the idea. Start small, start where you can, but you have to keep it consistent. Be consistent, and that's where the growth happens, whether it's, you want to do it part-time or maybe one day dip into full-time. Now let's move on to side hustles, John. So you started as an employee with one of the biggest energy companies in the world, Royal Shell Dutch.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Royal Dutch Shell, RDS.
Got the sequence wrong.
No
okay.
worries.
Yeah. So before you started like side hustling, selling insurance, like was your first side hustle, right? I mean,
Yes.
officially while working.
Actually, my first side hustle, sorry, was selling unit trust, but I couldn't bring myself to sell because I understood stocks better. But anyway, okay, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Then now you are fully in as an entrepreneur with a few ventures under your belt. So maybe you can share a bit on how you why you decided actually to start with insurance of all things, to move with insurance.
Yeah. It was the right opportunity at the right time because one, I had a good mentor. The upline that I went to, he didn't recruit me. I actually went to him. He was actually already serving me as an insurance planner. And when I looked around in my circle of friends at that point of time in Miri, I realized that I did not have a business mentor. So if there wasn't a business mentor who started, maybe a construction business or whatever, you remember that earlier question you said, I want to stay technical and then I would just want to do my thing, right? That was me when I first started, just climb the corporate ladder. Then as I grew and looked at the world in a different lens, I realized that, crap, my circle is so small. And when I wanted to come out, I looked around. I didn't have much mentors, except for a lot of my work mentors, which would teach me to be a better employee. But right at that point of time, one of the mentors that I had was this insurance planner that I felt that I could learn a lot from, and that was why I picked insurance. Second reason was because it was all part of the pillar of financial planning, and I realized that a lot of people want to invest money as the first priority, but they never get the first pillar right, which is actually the foundation of financial planning, which is insurance. And when I got into, I'm very attracted to technical viagrities. The more technical it's like the more I want to like dive into it. And insurance is actually a very, very technically challenging product. If you really want to go into very deep and it's very complex. Obviously, like options pricing, derivatives in the stock market is also complex. But for me, that was something that intrigued me at that point of time, and I went into there. But what I realized was that I'm going against the grain because most of the market was selling insurance product as an investment product. And it took me a lot of time to unwind that bias, that fixed mindset that people had about insurance. And the other thing I also struggled with was that the payout ratio for me against the amount of work and what I love to do was, for me, imbalance. Because for me, I always came into it's investing at its core. I really love the thought of investing, fell in love with Buffett the moment I was introduced to him. So it kind of like, I had a good mentor. I learned a lot, opened my eyes and opened my world into financial services. But then over time, I realized it wasn't my cup of tea. So it was like your journey. You wanted technical writing and then you realize it's not your cup of tea, right?
Yeah. So I think at the beginning, it started off as like a skills, interest, opportunity match.
Correct.
Right?
Precisely.
Came out at the same time and you kind of just leave that. And probably that was your best opportunity for that very moment.
Correct.
But I think once you started in your journey in insurance, you started to see even more doors open. And now this door becomes like the inferior door. I'm going to go to the next one, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is a very insightful thing because a lot of people don't realize maybe before they start the side hustle is that this may be your only door right now. But then once you enter that door, maybe some new doors will also open.
You are spot on. Yeah. So I think one thing that since you brought that up, Louis, is actually how willing are you to take a chance? And I think risk minimization, a lot of people think that entrepreneurs are risk maximization. No. Actually, before I even started, was to take that leap of faith to do this full time, was actually to get all my finance house in order. I could live without an income at that point for 6 years actually.
So you already have cushion in place, and that gave you the
correct. And that was there was three main factors, right? that gave me that risk management. Obviously, the factors for me to leave is different, but these were the three main risk management factors that I had. One, at that point of time, did I had the skill set to invest my own money? Yes. Two, did I have a safety net that I could survive for at least like 2 years? I think 2 years is already, I was like stretching it 6 years, right? And obviously made some mistake. And it was good that I had 6 years because I made mistakes that like set me back 2 years. But even then, I think bare minimum you should have at least 1 or 2 years of expenses packed in, so you can go and experiment, because then your fuse is not so short. It's like you're lighting a fuse. The moment you start entrepreneurship, you light the fuse of a firecracker. You better make sure the fuse is long.
I think if you've never started a business before, you wouldn't be able to account for every single expense. That's what I found.
Yes,
when I first
exactly.
started, maybe you think 10,000 is enough. In fact, no, you need 100,000.
Correct.
Just because like when you haven't stepped into that world yet, you kind of see a very narrow view of everything, right? And then once you're inside, you start to see, oh, actually this costs money, competition is like nearing at like coming out at me. What can I do to stave them off for a bit? Those kind of things will keep cropping up. And I think 2 years is very generous. I think when I started, I think I only had like one plus year, maybe. Not very long, because like I only worked for 4 years at that time.
I see. Yeah. Well, I think 1+ for you for 4 years. That means you had a buffer of 1/3 of your quarter of your working career, which is a lot. Actually, a lot of people don't even get there.
Yeah, because I always had it in mind that I may one day need that buffer, so I kind of saved up for that lah. But
the other thing also
used.
The other thing also is you live below your means, right? A lot of people live above their means, and they had this thing called a lifestyle creep. The more income they have, the more they spend. And I think as an entrepreneur, right? Sorry, your payout is not now, it's not YOLO now, your YOLO is later when you really have that.
And I think many people, they think it's gonna pay out in 2 years, 3 years, but realistically it's between 5 to 10 years, more on the 10-year side for most businesses. If you get there, you're most likely gonna be quite profitable. But if not, you're gonna probably close shop before that lah.
Correct. So 3 things. Do you have a transferable skill set? Do you have a safety net? And you nicely explained that you had 1.5 years after working for 4 years. And last but not least, do you have emotional support from people that are depending on you? So in your case, perhaps your mom, does he or she, your parents, does he or she need stipend or anything from you? And also, do they have do they cultivate an ecosystem or environment that encourages you rather than like why I say that's important apart from the monetary aspects and the skills aspects is this. Can you imagine every day you come from your work and you're being poured cold water by people closest to you? Louis cannot work one whatever. It's like it's playing on your psychology, If they just let you be and then let you explore, and then they just say, okay, Louis, wish for you. They don't need to give you words of encouragement every day, but at least they let you do your thing and let you do in peace, right? Rather than like, I think that for me was a very key or paramount factor that helped me be where I am today, lah. And I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
That's probably I didn't really think of it, but when I look back, I think it's kind of true, because like in my younger years, I surrounded myself with a lot of like employee friends who were like me. It was easy to be in circles like that because you're already working like you have peers who are just like you. And I think with people who have different goals, they tended to be quite discouraging when you try to do something different. That came as a surprise to me. But then because of the journey that I plan to be on, so I decided consciously to have less conversations about these businesses with them, because I think like it's kind of like when the seed is just growing and you just want to pour some toxins onto it, it's not gonna grow very big, right? I think that you're just starting out, it's important to have that right environment. If you have to, you maybe have to hang out less with people like who are not on the same journey. Nothing wrong with their mindset. I think it's just that you are on different paths.
That's
You
right.
know,
That's
they're
right.
gonna always think whatever they think, and you're gonna always think whatever you think. And if they tend to want to impose that ideology on you, that's gonna be a bit harmful when you're just starting out. Yeah,
That's right.
that's
That's right.
something I can agree with.
You need, not to say that you should rely on external encouragement, but one less noise, it's easier on the ears and also on the mind to go forward. I had a very supportive family in a way. My mom nearly had a heart attack when I told her, I'm leaving Shell and with such a good career progression and salary. But I think the journey has been interesting and they've been supportive so far. It helps that I don't stay with them. So yeah, it helps. It does. Sorry, sorry, mom. Sorry, pop. But it helps that I don't stay with them, and I had somewhat of an independence. Yeah. I think unless you try an experiment, you wouldn't know all these nuances.
That's true.
And the only thing you can do is I feel if you want to take this seriously, take those little steps. And then when you reach a pivoting moment, right, burn the boats. I know I'm trying to sound very extreme, but have you heard of this phrase called burn the boats?
No.
Okay,
No,
so what it means is this: you go to war at another country, but you have to row, right? You have to row. You have to row to get there on the boats. Now usually you leave the boats on shore so that if you want to escape, if you lose the war, right, you can jump back on the boat and row back, right? So the morale of how you want to win the war is the general will actually burn all the boats. The moment the soldiers are you burn the boats. So you got to win. It's just like going forward. You can't go backwards. Yeah, I know it sounds extreme, Louis, but I think all the entrepreneurs I've met who left employment and have not gone back to employment is because they burned the boats. Yeah, not burn the bridge, different. Yeah, you burn the bridge means you burn the relationship with your former colleagues or managers. No, different. This one is burn the boat so that you only program for success going forward.
That's true. I think I now that you mentioned it, I did write something of a quote like that when I started. It was like, only plan A, no plan B.
Yeah.
Only have one path forward. No matter what, you have to survive. No
matter how you have to survive, you'll find a way and not go back to your comfort zone of safety All of us will want to go back to. I mean, even today, there's a lot of temptation. People put things on the table for me. Hey, John, come work for me. Hey, John, start this venture for me. I give you equity, whatever. Then there's always this, when you're at a point as an entrepreneur, right? Not every month you get income, right? It's very tempting because stability again, So this is why that is why I feel the first foundational thing is like, do you have money to burn for 1-2 years? Because if you have money to burn and you are conscious about your expenses and your lifestyle, I think that's where it helps you from either getting greedy too early, not having the patience, and making stupid mistakes, and going back to your comfort zone. You see? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also like psychologically, like when you're hungry, right? You tend to think the food is tastier.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the kind of mindset. I think that when we don't have the financial cushion, whatever is in front of us and it will give us that month's pay, it's gonna be tasty looking, right? But is it gonna be like conducive of like a long-term growth?
Yeah.
That's something that you need to consider when you reach that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the concise way of us trying to bring this message across to you guys as the listeners: start something, write a list, start something, tune it to your ability, your personality, your, how do I say, what makes it easy for you. A lot of times people think that side hustle is something very, very difficult. You must do something that other people have done or other people are not doing. You'll be surprised that sometimes what is needed by society or by a business is something that's actually very easy for you. It's just that you've not looked hard enough. Right? It's just not, and it doesn't need to be something sexy like technology, like coding or whatever. My gosh, I've seen people do laundromats and become multimillionaires, things like that, So
Cleaning,
yeah,
a lot of things.
yeah. Investing is one option. I'm not saying it works for everybody, but I think it's very risk minimized as compared to starting your own business. That's my point of view. The reason why people lose so much money in investing is because they speculate most of the time. They want quick money. They're greedy. They don't play the game for the long term. I can go on and on about the statistics of it, but I think that deserves a
Maybe for
warrant.
another
Yeah,
episode.
exactly.
So the point of this episode, I guess, just to summarize everything, is that having just one source of income is always going to be risky, no matter how safe or stable you think your job's going to be. I think a lot of people who worked at Google thought that they would keep working at Google until they die. Maybe they've seen colleagues who have done that, but we've seen now that people who have worked at Google for 17, 18, 20 years have been laid off like with just one email, and that's it. Maybe they get a severance package and they're on the way. And a lot of times these people, they actually become very lost. They feel like, okay, I've contributed so much of my life and time into this company, right? And I actually feel a kind of like identity with them. So then it becomes really hard for them even to transition out of it. Actually, some people have even said, okay, I don't have other skills other than working for Google. So don't put yourself in that position, is what we're trying to say, and explore your options. Two options that John mentions are very good ones: investing and then starting a side hustle. Pick the one that suits you. Either one can be done part-time, and can be transitioned full-time, depends on your interest. But what's key here is be consistent and have the tenacity through the hard times.
Fantastic summary, Louis. For the listeners out there, if this content is really to your liking, consider subscribing, give it a like, so that the YouTube algo can actually publish it to more people like-minded like you, and they can benefit as well. Remember, we are always open to comments and feedback. So you give us some comments at the bottom section. What are you doing? Perhaps you're moonlighting that you can generate thousands in a month. Louis and I will be very interested to hear you, and even showcase your story, right? I'm a business owner or entrepreneur like Louis. We don't discriminate how you make money, except unless it's illegal or you're doing illegal stuff. But anything that it's interesting, we love to hear from you. If you have a financial question that you need answering, I don't know where is a safe space, you can rest assured we'll keep it anonymous. Get to the Wang Hiro website. Louis has done very well in preparing a questionnaire, a dialogue box for you to submit that question anonymously, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.
Thank you guys so much. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.